It may be that it's the arthritis. Maybe. Or it may be that your leg is stuck at 90 degrees.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but do you think this is a problem?
Yes.
So why's your knee hurt?
I don't know.
Well, because your leg is stuck at 90 degrees. Now, I want to show you something. This leg this is the more affected leg, right?
No.
It's this one. I grabbed it.
Which one?
This is the more affected leg. This is the one.
Yeah.
So this is the quote unquote good leg. Let's look at the sporty leg, right? And notice we come on to tension in the system here, right? It's starting to build, and see how it just really ends quickly? Mm-hmm. I know you have more range in that. So watch this. Flip on your back real quick.
I'm gonna break this table.
You wish. So look, all of a sudden, I've got way more range than you're expressing. So it can't be your knee that's the limiting factor, because in this position, look, I'm about a fist from, right, only a few inches of heel to butt. And that may be truly where you're limited based on some of the changes in your joint, but that's a lot more than you have when you lay down. So lay on your stomach again.
Oh boy.
Oh, you got it. Be a lifter, they said. Be an athlete, they said. Feel great all the time, they said. But in this position, notice that we don't have the same reflection. So what's changed in this position? What's changed is the orientation of how much capacity she has through the front of the quad and acrossing the hip. And you'll notice that I'm looking at this and her hip actually comes up and then the hip is down. So the leg isn't even in extension yet. And as we start to put this into more extension, guess what? It gets tighter and tighter, which tells me that there's a tissue restriction in this high quad, high thigh, that's putting that patella under freakish amounts of load. Does that make sense? So the reason I knew to look for this is, one is, why don't we just check? But two is that Jess tends not to do it, because you can go on her Instagram and see kind of her training, and her squats look great. So if her squatting is great and her technique is great and she's got rotation, then let's look at the actual components of the tissue system. And one of the things we see is that there is a dearth, AKA there's none training in hip extension. So what we need to do is start to get you loaded in a little bit of some extension bias movements on the hip. Does that make sense? And let me show you what I'm talking about. Come over here. So the technical term, normally we don't try to swear on camera, but I'd say if I was writing in my note, I would write stiffness as focus. Stiffness AF.
Got it.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'll tell you what, lay on your back for me real quick. You okay on that mic?
Oh, yeah, it's fine.
Okay. So this is the party leg? Yeah. So how do we know if it's a normal party leg or not, right? Should it be stiff? Should it hurt to compression at all? I'm sorry, what was that? So what you're seeing is, and this is very common in a lot of our strength athletes or stronger athletes, some of the traditional sort of fascial mobilizations or soft tissue mobilizations don't cut it. We really have to look at what some of our best traditions of strength athletes have been doing. Look at the Thai fighters, look at the amount of soft tissue work around that. If you've ever had a little 65-year-old Thai grandma put her little needle heels into your body, you're like, oh, this is real. Or if you look at how the Chinese lifters are addressing, they actually walk on each other before practice and after practice. And what you're seeing is that we have become as a generation of strong athletes who are training really hard and really strong. We are trying to come up with these just so stories. Well, we know you dislocated your patella as a kid and had fixed. So we know that the joint system isn't perfect anymore, but that's okay. That's what it means to be an athlete. We're gonna see degenerative changes or changes relative to arthritis or contact or trauma that happens, but we can't really change those systems. So what we do instead is say, well, how do I improve the health and efficiency of the whole system? And so if quadriceps are stiff, and remember, quadriceps may have gotten stiff because of the style of training, or it may be signaling from the joint to try to protect that system by making it stiffer. But when I'm pushing on here, feels a little bit like beef jerky, right? And it should feel fine. If I stood on Jess's hamstring, she would have no problem. But I'm not even putting my full weight on here. So I should be able to stand my full, I weigh like 175 right now, 180. And if I put my full weight on here, what's going on?
I need a minute.
The safe word is brisket, but I haven't even heard that. So the idea here is we need to make sure that we are addressing stiffness in our strongest athletes appropriately and crossing that off the table. So if I someone has knee pain, I push on a system upstream directly connected and I have painful tissues, the way we want you to think about it is that's the problem until it's not the problem. So it may be multifactorial. There are a lot of things going on. Her brain is sensitized. We have tissues that can handle this or aren't as good at adapting handling certain loads or speed volumes. But as we start to kind of build problem lists, if we see inefficiency or stiffness in the system, start working on that. If someone's missing hip extension, that's the problem. What we saw here was that quad was really stiff and was limiting her. And notice where I'm working upstream on those quads. And you're seeing that it's stiff. And what I want you to see here is I'm clonking back and forth over, is that Piedmontese? Is that what I'm feeling there?
Oh,
right?
I've had that since rowing.
I've had that since rowing. And what you'll see is that as you start to have this conversation with our athletes, because I've only been working on this for like a minute or two, we don't have to get the whole thing done today, but we may need some more pressure. And as coaches and athletes, we're gonna need to be more comfortable about addressing this tissue system. It should be painless to compression. And I can confirm my change by still going that heel to butt test, right? And you can see that big snap there is her stiff ass rectus.
I'm sweating.
That's so good. We call this cardio, partner cardio, where you can actually get your heart rate up and do all of your cardiorespiratory training just by someone standing on your quadriceps. So again, the stiffness is the first thing. The second piece we're going to have to remedy is making sure that she's spending time in positions that begin to challenge this position. We can do that with isometrics. We can do that with some training where we're taking that hip and forcing that tissue into this end range. We see it regularly, and especially in our strength athletes, is that we extend the hip a lot, but we don't spend time in hip extension. So step one, we need to get some partner smashing and really get into the exquisiteness here on the quads. This is why Jessica and I are really good friends. And then secondarily, we're going to take you to the gym and show you some of my favorite ways to remedy this. What do you think the problem is?